I think at one point I was like, I want to be successful. I want to win. I want to be big. I want to be known. I want to preach there. I want to say that. At 42 years of age, I want to last.
The worst thing in life is not to have a scoreboard with less points, but to actually have a scoreboard with lots of points and realize you played the wrong game.
What's God's will for my life? Well, doesn't Thessalonians say that will of God is to pray continually, give thanks in all things, and rejoice always? You know,
Right.
like, are you doing those three things? The calling will find you. Every time we face a trial or pain, there's an opportunity to grow and become something. Because the story you tell yourself will become the life that you live.
So how do you think your son like seeing so I get nervous about telling people that I love the outdoors, you know? And so I don't know if that's powerful or not. I don't know if it's allowed. Should I be nervous about telling people that I
No, I think
hunt,
that you
fish?
should embrace the fact that you have an Esau spirit, you know? I mean, Esau was a hunter and a gatherer. By the way, Esau means hairy, by the way.
And I am that.
Totally.
Right?
I mean, totally
You know what I'm
the
saying?
opposite. But it's
Like
just,
I've trimmed around.
Yeah.
I would be the guy that, you know. So you want to know something really funny? Like, do you know, and this is very generational, but like I just had a young guy on our staff. They had a new baby and they have a picture of him holding the baby on his chest. Have you heard of this?
skin to skin.
Is that, and
Yeah.
so it's supposedly, what does that do?
Well, what it's doing, Pastor, is that it's nurturing the baby. And it's a big, big rage right now.
It is?
Yeah, I mean, my boy's 8 and we're still doing about 30 minutes every night. No, that's strictly
funny.
for his development.
That is hilarious.
No, it's a whole thing they talk about in the hospitals for sure. It's called skin to skin.
The hospitals talk about it.
Yeah, they're
So this
really
is
big
not
on it.
just some
No,
random
this
online
This
thing.
is modern medicine. The
Medicine.
The machine, I think, what was the guy with the COVID shot that was real big out there for a while? He's really pushing it.
You're crazy, man. You're nuts.
You're crazy, man. Come on,
So
Back
but
to
what I-
hunting.
But let me tell you back to hunting and
Yeah.
Esau. So what I said was, I was asked if that would have been in
Sure.
when I had my kids who are all grown now, would you have done it? And I said they would have thought they were swaddled because I have basically a blanket, like more like what you would put on a horse. So they would think they were in a blanket if I put them. There would be no skin because the fur.
You have so much fur on you.
Yeah.
So you are Esau.
Yes.
You are actually hairy.
Yes.
Wow. Can
Yeah.
you show us?
Well, I did,
Now I'm
I did
intrigued.
shave my name in the back of one
Okay,
time.
very, very
just for
cool.
as, like a picture. There's one guy there's a photo of a guy at NASCAR who's bald-headed,
Yes.
who shaved Dale Earnhardt in the back of his hair. So I did think about replicating that, but I feel like that
You should have done
that would probably get me.
No,
you know.
my son Wild got here and he got to go into a special place of yours and he is having the time of his life. In fact, right now, he is, while we're filming this, he's in the kids ministry playing skee ball.
Yeah.
And so I go home once again as a disappointing father and a pretty terrible church planner. Dad, why don't we have skee ball at our church? I don't know, son.
so
We've got
those-
the Bible.
So to set the record straight, we have a guy in our church who is actually in one of my men's business guys development groups. He had gone out to San Francisco. He saw a trampoline park.
Okay.
He has this vision and dream. I start pastoring, praying for him. He's a really close friend, as well, and younger guy. And he started Urban Air. They're all over the country. And he's the one that did that. He was like, I'm paying for it.
I'm taking
I'm
care
putting
of it.
this in my church. We're having this area for kids. And so it's kind of,
I think
it's
it's-
kind of crazy that you have it, but it's also kind of speaks to the reality of, when you have these people that God does things in their life, they kind of see their church. He also helped us within the kids' rooms, like they do some stuff with just like using projectors. So when they teach on the Bible story, like it projects the story for the kids to be in
No,
there. And
that's
that was
super
all
cool.
him. Like we wouldn't even have thought of it. And he did it all.
Well, I love stories like that. I mean, number one, why go to Pigeon Forge when you can go to church?
Yeah.
But number two, I always think it's just really cool when we spread and cast a big vision how there's so many different talents, giftings out there. I always think about the tabernacle and all the people they brought together to build it and put things together.
Yeah.
Like, you just have no idea the miracles, the answers, the ideas that are sitting out there in the pew. And it's cool when you kind of empower other people. Next thing you know, you've got, maps in your kids' room, things that I would never know how to do if
Right.
it had not been for incredible people in our church. And it happens over and over again.
When I do our membership class, I always say to the people in there, because, the Bible says, if he's placing them here, then there's a fuller perspective of Christ being given to the world around us, because the body is more complete. And I tell them, the church is the most resource-rich environment on the planet, no matter what size it is. When you're talking about talents, giftings, all of that, but many times, they have to be, connected for that to be released,
Absolutely. I just love the idea that the church is an expression of who Christ is.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why we have different churches is because we got different types of people.
Exactly.
And so, I think people get too fixated sometimes, like, this is how we're supposed to do it. It's like, no, this is how we do it here.
Yeah.
In Revelation, there's that beautiful, Revelation 2, where there's the 7 different churches.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting about that passage is every time that Jesus comes and speaks, he introduces himself a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that, because I think sometimes introductions, is like, if I'm going to introduce myself to you, oftentimes I'm trying to quickly present what it is I want you to know about me. If you're going to introduce me to your audience, this is what you need to know about Rich. And I like that fact that he introduced himself a different way, as if to say, there's something that I want to show you about me. Meaning, collectively speaking, we all know something about Jesus,
Right.
but we don't know everything about Jesus.
Yes.
And one of the best ways that we can know more and more about him is by being in a church, being in the body,
Love
and getting
it.
to know his people, because
Love
his
it.
people, they will bring skee ball to your kids' ministry. And I just want to say right now, so everyone out there, I am not a hater. I'm a lover of this. And wherever your friend is, can he get us skee balls for our for our new building? Because my kid's not leaving your church. And so,
Well, I'm so
he's
glad.
calling you dad. That's kind of made me feel really weird.
Yeah, I'm going to take him on a little hunting excursion.
Oh, bro.
As a manhood ceremony to bring him in to, especially as
First
he
blood.
hits yeah.
He needs this. He needs this experience. Primal.
I got him some cowboy boots, so he's
Yes.
definitely going back to Miami as a true Texan.
He loves you, and I actually hate you. No, I love you.
So I'm glad to have you on here.
Thank you for letting me come.
I know, the Lead to Win podcast, we were just chatting about it, because I love the format, to be able because I've been getting feedback from teachers, business leaders. We have a college, so have college students. So you have listening ministry leaders, but you also have just community leaders. And it's a great chance for me to offer a relationship like ours to them. And so over the last several years, we've had connection in different ways, but we have a specific event we share some relationships where we get to go and be together. Our families have connected. And so I've just wanted to, I don't know, draw out the gold in you a little, I think every person, every relationship, you and I have just been talking where I'm like, hey, Rich, look, I'm okay at this, and this, but here's some stuff that I would love to give to you that I feel like could be a strength of mine.
Sure.
And I would like our audience, maybe, first thing I want to do is I want them to kind of know who you are. Because I think in our culture today, people, see one snippet or soundbite, or somebody pulls something from one message or some clip or something, and they could categorize somebody to go, oh, that person is this. And I'm always trying to pastor people and counsel them to go, hey, your algorithm, we have such one-dimensional thinking. We have one-dimensional thought process, and we kind of tend to sort of categorize people. And I think sometimes people, they know that builds a following to have one dimension or one message.
Sure.
You're a pastor. You're a pastor's kid. You have a heritage of ministry. Tell us a little bit about, growing up, first of all, as a ministry kid, and then what was that like to find your own calling and stuff?
I grew up, I was born in Tacoma, Washington, 1984, and I grew up in a pastor's home, preacher's home, really. My dad was an itinerant evangelists out of the Assemblies of God. My grandfather, my mom's dad, pastored really an amazing, amazing church, Assemblies of God church called Life Center. In many ways, he was ahead of his time. His good friend was Robert Schuller.
Yeah.
And so my grandfather, although he had Pentecostal roots, probably really gravitated towards his friendship with Robert Schuller. He used to preach like no more than 22 minutes on a Sunday. He had messages like cry a river, build a bridge, get over it. Nobody gets the whole loaf, enjoy the slice you get. You know, the only time you fail is the last time you try. On and on and on. It's too soon to quit. Tough times don't last, tough people do. That was my grandfather. We grew up right next door to him. And so many ways, my most formative years, my adolescence going right to 14, he was my next door neighbor and he was a second father to me. And that was the Buntain side. That's my mom's side. And on the Buntain side, there's famous missionaries. Mark Buntain was good friends with Mother Teresa in Calcutta. He built hospitals and churches. But on my dad's side, it kind of gave me the fiery side. His first cousin was David Wilkerson, who started Times Square Church.
And, that's amazing.
And Teen Challenge. And then in between all those kind of well-known, notable names are uncles, aunts, cousins, all preachers, all pastors. We'd be here all day. I was joking with your staff today, my first slow dance was to Our God is an Awesome God. Because in my house, we grew up like, I was telling last night I was at a dinner with some friends, I was like, oh yeah, in my house, you know, you can't drink, you can't cuss, but more than any of those things, you can't dance. I can't tell you how many weddings we'd be at the wedding, at the reception, and as soon as the dancing began, my dad would go, Wilkersons, we're out. And it was like our moment to go, we're not going to fall to Babylon. Okay. We're not going to let the hand of God, mene, I can't even remember the words, but you know, we were raised that way. And so my first slow dance being to Our God is an Awesome God was just a hilarious story because my dad allowed us to get a DJ, but he could only play worship music, which was traumatizing to say the least. But in 1998, my dad felt a call to go and take over a little Assemblies of God church called Trinity Church in North Miami. And so, man, we left Washington and made the move to Florida, and it was a cross-cultural experience in every sense of the word, from the climate to the food to the topography to the people. The church I grew up in from 14 all the way through high school was really, I was the only white person there. It was Haitians, Jamaicans, Bahamians. But you know what? So much of it formed me who I am today. I went to a high school, which was a Presbyterian school. So I remember being there. My dad used to be on TBN, and I felt like every week they were trying to get me saved. You know, like, do you know the tulip? Do you believe in total depravity? I'm like, it's just. So I have kind of all these interesting influences that sort of really impacted me and become reference points in my life. But I ended up going to school at Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee. Met my wife, Dawn Cherie, right at the age of 17, right before that. It's a whole story we could talk about. But as we went to school together, we dated, we got married, came back and worked for my dad at that same church, Trinity. Served him for 8 years in young adults, much like your son is serving. Had a Tuesday night program, much like he does. Yeah. And after 8 years of doing that, they launched us into full-time ministry of starting a church.
So Dawn Cherie, to her father, Denny Duran,
he's
like a
four
hero
generations
to me.
as well. Yeah.
I was at a pastor's the other day. Your father-in-law was sitting beside me, right? I mean, I'm like nobody sitting, next to this legend, and he leans over, Jeff, I've been praying for you. I listened to a couple of your messages. You did great. You're amazing. I mean, he's one of those people, like, you just feel like you're so.
He's cool, man.
It's like we need more,
when he talks.
You're like sitting by him and he's like, he just makes me feel like your messages are valuable, you're valuable. And I'm sitting there going, Denny Duran was
He kind of talks in sound bites. He kind of has like this voice that just makes you, it's like, I always wonder, what's God's voice sound like? It's definitely Mufasa, from The Lion King. Like, I'm going to be so mad if we get to heaven, like God hasn't hit puberty. Well done, good. It's like, what's happening? My father-in-law, when he speaks, it's like this cadence, this flow.
Yeah.
Everything's like,
and so,
a word of the Lord.
Just so exhortive, encouraging, genuine. I mentioned this to earlier. We were with some teams of people, and I mentioned this because it impacted me, because Dawn Cherie was talking at something we were at together. We were doing a little panel, and we're supposed to be talking to the audience, but she was ministering to me because I was listening to her. Had a hurt. Like a one of these like real close, like, ministry challenges. And she was talking about how her dad at the dinner table, she's a kid, and we're going to forgive them, and we're going to, the whole tone he set in his house toward what, kind of what's God saying to us. Yes, it hurts, but we're not going to get bitter. We're going to, I just thought that was so, I know Denny personally now, respect him and stuff, but in that moment, even before I knew him, I respected him because I thought, how we need that more. We need parents in homes, ministry or otherwise, that help us process our pains.
Absolutely.
In a way that the enemy doesn't rob us of our future. Because that's really, if you go down that path, it's just going to rob you of what God's called you to do.
I like that scripture that, many teachers but few fathers.
Right.
And he just is that in every sense of the word.
Right.
And you teach what you know, you reproduce who you are.
Exactly.
What did Jesus say? Wisdom will be proven right by all her children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just look at their 6 biological kids. They have a 7th. They adopted as well. And just the fruit of their life is
it's amazing.
It's amazing. But so much of it, what you're saying, is attributed to him. And here's what's really interesting. Because I think often this is good for anyone who's listening right now, who's in a challenge or who's in pain or who's in trial.
Mm-hmm.
I think we often think that like good things are only passed down by good things happening to us.
Right.
But it's not true. We don't really know what's inside of any of us until we get squeezed, until pressure hits our life.
Right.
It's like if you squeeze an apple, you get apple juice.
Yeah.
You squeeze an orange, you get orange juice.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you squeeze a Christian? Complaining, fear. When you squeeze a believer, you ought to get believer juice, because believers actually should have this thing called fruit. It's called the fruit of the Spirit.
Exactly.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness. And I think pain is one of God's greatest ways of teaching us. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know the testing of our faith develops perseverance, and perseverance must give way that we might become mature and complete.
Yeah.
Who says that? Consider it pure joy.
Yeah.
My father-in-law certainly does.
Yeah.
Because every time we face a trial or pain, there's an opportunity to grow and become something. And I've just learned with pain, when you have pain or you have a trial, you can either nurse it, carry it around with you. People like that, you see them coming, it's like, I'm kind of avoiding that person. They're always carrying something. You can rehearse it. You can talk about it over and over and over again. You can curse it. Some people go through pain or trial and they just hate it.
Yeah.
Or you could be a person who reverses it.
Yeah.
And the way that we reverse most pain in our life is through righteous revenge, which is that word forgiveness.
Yeah.
It's not the denying that something happened.
Right.
It's the facing it, embracing it, acknowledging that it took place, but to say, I've got something inside of me. I have been forgiven, therefore I too can forgive. And my wife has been marked deeply by watching her father, not in the good victories, but in what appeared to be failures, betrayals, attacks, how he stood in it. And I'm just telling you, it shapes me. I remember one time we were in Hoover, Alabama. We were at an Evangel football game. My father-in-law was a football coach. Yeah. And he was in the papers. There was a bunch of people that were upset and criticizing him. And we were in the stands, and my wife and I were sitting on the other, on the opponent's side. And I'm like 18, 19. And my wife, if you see her, she's 5'3", she's beautiful, she's little, but like, she's not to be messed with. And we're sitting there, and these people behind us start talking bad about her dad. I mean, they're trashing Denny. And I can just, like, her leg starts shaking. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, am I supposed to, he's not my father-in-law yet. I'm just dating her. And man, they went for about 3 or 4 minutes until she finally turned around and said, excuse me, that man you're talking about is my father. And I would appreciate it if you would close your mouth, because he's the best man I've ever known. And then she's like, let's go, Rich. And we walked away. I was like, yeah, don't mess with her or me. I'm just saying, she has a grit and a strength that comes only from adversity.
Yeah, exactly.
Only from adversity, only from facing it and coming out the other side.
I mean, I haven't talked about it, but how you sometimes have this seed of a message or whatever that if I get an opportunity to speak to pastors, leaders, it's really around this subject, because I truly believe that those who don't finish well, when you look back, it's how they managed some kind of painful event. Like, you know what I mean? You're like, why are they closed off? Well, they're doing that as a protective measure by how they handle their pain, and they kind of get to a point where it's like, well, I'm not letting anybody in, and you can feel that. So I was wondering, what's the target for us as now that we're on this little rabbit trail? I'm preaching on parenting this weekend.
Yeah.
Soft heart. It's not behavior, but it's heart. It's the parenting principle is we get caught up in the grades and the accolades and all these externals. And you used the illustration earlier about clean your room and passively. It's really heart, right?
Totally.
Like, what do we want for our kids? What does God want from us? Keep that soft heart.
Solomon said, above all else, guard your heart, for it's the wellspring of life. And I think about the things that we guard sometimes in life. If we would just spend half as much effort, the way that we guard money, as, we would guard our heart the same way we guard our money.
Yeah.
Because out of the heart, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. All of these things are right there. Out of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so when he's speaking about heart, he's speaking that it's your life source. It's everything flows out of that place. But man, when it gets hurt, it gets hard, and it does so to protect itself.
Yeah.
I think a big thing for me, I'm only 42 years of age, and I grew up in a pastor's home, and one of the most painful things for me was just watching people be mean to mom or dad.
Right.
I think I always loved God. I sort of maybe had like proactive rebellion. What I mean by that is it was never like I was an atheist. I always knew who God was. I was like, I'm working on my testimony. I got to have something to preach one of these days. It was pretty ridiculous. But I think if there was anything that was ever like disheartening for me was like, man, I know my dad and I watch him and he loves you. And for you to say that about him or for you to do that about him, but I'm grateful I got to have a front row seat to watch how he responded.
Right.
Because in his response, that's where character is formed.
Right.
And I think for me at this age, I don't know if this will be helpful for anyone, but like, I just find myself having to reframe it.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of time reframing things.
Right.
Because we're all telling ourselves a story.
Very good.
Human beings don't see things, we script things.
Exactly.
Right? We're storytellers.
Yes.
And if I don't understand something, I got to make sense out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, why did Jeff say that or this? And I got to make sense. I got to fill in the gaps. And you get to define and decide what story do you want to tell yourself.
Exactly.
Because the story you tell yourself will become the life that you live.
Mm-hmm.
And over again, I just find myself, I got to reframe things. I found myself in a season not too long ago where I was saying some stuff that I think it's like that old Garth Brooks song, I'm too young to feel this old. But I was saying some stuff like maybe I had some relational hurt, some people that maybe had left. And I was like, I don't really know if I trust people the same.
Yeah.
And that might be a real feeling, and it might be honest, but just because it's honest doesn't mean it has to become true.
Right.
We can talk about that for a moment too. Like just because something's honest, I can be honest, but I don't have to make that the truth of my life.
There you go.
But I was saying like, I don't know if I trust people, but I started to reframe it because that's not true.
That's right.
I do trust people.
You do. Yeah.
When I first started out in ministry, I was delusional.
Right.
That means ignorant, naive. I just was bright-eyed. I trusted everybody. At 42, I'm not delusional anymore.
Right.
But there's been some things that have left me disillusioned.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And in the moments where I feel disillusioned, confused, if I'm not careful, I will start telling myself a story that's not true. Oh, you don't trust people. People aren't trustworthy. You can't trust nobody. They're just going to hurt you. They're just going to let you down. The reality is no, I'm just not delusional anymore. I now know I have to trust certain people with certain things.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's not one person outside of my wife and Jesus who can take the full weight, but I lean on you for something.
Yeah.
I can lean on my dad for something. Yeah. I trust all sorts of people. I just might not trust them with 100% of everything.
Right.
I give them access to the parts that they can be responsible for.
Because the part we're missing, right, is you gain discernment. I mean, discerning of spirits is one of the gifts of the Spirit.
Very good. But
I do believe that people who don't flip the script, people who don't frame it, can become unbondable. You literally, because trust is what you bond around.
Very good.
So if I stop trusting, then I stop bonding. And so I think how you process that pain, it's kind of like a Lego, right? If it doesn't have any receptors, so it can't connect because all of the holes are unbondable.
It's really, really good. I like that idea of discernment. You're talking about that because I think as we mature and as we grow, that's what we want to gain wisdom in.
Right.
Charles Spurgeon said this about discernment. He said, discernment is not knowing the difference between right and wrong. Discernment is the ability to choose from right and almost right. Which if that don't preach in 2026, I don't know what will, because that's the world that we're living in. This can happen in every category of our life. We could go from an orthodox approach. I was reading a book the other day that somebody handed me, a Christian person handed it to me. I started reading it, and I was like, man, this is good. It's got a lot of spiritual language. Like, this is powerful. I'm really moved. I'm an open box. I can vibe with people. Like, that is really, really good. And I got to this chapter, and they started saying, love is God. I was like, wow, that sounds. Wait, that sounds almost right. Because you got to go to your Bible then and go, wait a minute, discernment, help me out. Oh, wait, it doesn't say love is God. It says God is love. So close, yet so different.
Very much.
If love is God, it means that whatever I love is God.
Yeah.
I love pizza, but what a lousy God. But if God is love, it now sets a standard for me that defines and determines, regardless of my preferences, feelings, fantasies, wants, likes, this is my standard. Therefore, if this disagrees with me, I'm going with God because there's only one that I can submit to. But discernment is key, because if you don't know, and if you can't actually look at this and go, this is almost right. Mm-hmm. So if I live in this whole world just going, man, I don't trust anyone. It's like, no, you don't trust some people.
Right.
And maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe that's just called growing up and maturing and recognizing, all right, Rich, as you've gained influence, as you've gained responsibility, you have to be wise about who it is that you're giving access to. Otherwise, your heart can be contaminated. Otherwise, your heart can become hard. And I think you nailed it. Like, sorry if I'm preaching too much here, but like up until about 2020 when the pandemic hit, we could talk about that as well. Just that whole time limit for me. I felt like I was walking in wet cement. Like I was walking light, having fun, enjoying it. In 2020, just with the loss of friends and just different friends of ours, movements that we saw that faced so much collateral and pain. I felt like even just for me, it was a season of just repentance, not because I had done something wrong, but just more so maybe the sin of omission and things that I ought to have been doing. But it was really a maturing year for me. In all of that, I look back on that and my whole story changed. I think at one point I was like, I want to be successful. I want to win. I want to be big. I want to be known. I want to preach there. I want to say that. At 42 years of age, I want to last.
There you go.
I want to last. So when you start talking about, when I look back at watching different people that are finishing well. I want to be like the apostle. I fought the good fight.
There you go.
I finished.
There you go.
I kept the faith. And I'm not throwing shade at nobody. I'm just going, just on the record at lead to win. Yeah. That's my goal.
Yeah.
How big do you want however big the Lord wants it. That is not my goal anymore. It's not to be successful. It truly is, like Mother Teresa said, to be faithful. I want to last.
Yeah. I mean, I think even that, like I heard someone years ago, I started, as a senior pastor at 21, right? So I was talking about shouldn't have had, I was like, I didn't say I was a good pastor. I said I was a pastor, right? But I heard a phrase, redemptive potential.
Ooh.
What can you really reach? There's a redemptive potential. How does that work with the sovereignty of God and my submission? Because I think we sometimes struggle. What's success, or what do as a leader? What do I
totally?
And you hit the nail on the head. As you journey along, what you really realize is what God has for me. If I keep my heart right, nobody can stop. No one can hinder. But at the end of the day, the biggest battle is really not on the outside. It's not the job opportunity, the speaking opportunity, it's an inside building. Job. It's an inside job, right? It's really about how I continue to keep my heart. And I would say myself, just like you, the last few years, I've had a few, tests that everyone else would think the test or the challenge or the circumstance, the COVID, all of that. I believe all of it, when I really look at it, it's all God just testing my heart.
Absolutely.
It purifies motives, right?
And I think that when you go through the test with an openness and a willingness to learn, the test doesn't define you. It truly does refine you.
Yep.
You come out on the other side. You become something. I remember at COVID, we were all singing that song, I want to be tried by fire. I looked over at my wife one day. She's like, I'm not singing that, man. And then all of a sudden the Lord, he does do it. We're like, why were we asking God, to try us by fire? But
that was our word for the year, was pure.
Oh gosh.
And then I preached on the two builders of the house and what was built. I was like, man, I'm going to get a different word to start the year.
Prophesied. Yeah. We just do accelerate. No, I like to, like, I love just the concept even of what you're doing here on this show about leading to win, because once again, for me, if I'm gonna define where I want to win, I also have to define where I'm okay to lose.
Right.
And I think oftentimes we don't get that. I was never the smartest person, but I was always a straight A student, not because I'm so smart, but because I knew how to get an A, and I like getting A's.
Right.
But I've just learned at this season of my life, you can't always get an A.
Right.
In every category.
Very much.
And so you kind of have to define where it is that you want to win and where you're okay with losing.
So the concept comes from, I think you and I've talked about it before, but everybody has a scoreboard. And the biggest challenge in life, me being a pastor all these years, sitting with people and them reflecting on their life, the worst thing in life is not to have a scoreboard with less points, but to actually have a scoreboard with lots of points and realize you played the wrong game. That's the theme of my sort of life message. Is, winning at what matters. And I think what a pastor does is gives you permission to win at what you're really going to care about. Because when I've sat, and you have before too, at a deathbed moment, they're not talking about their 401k. They're not talking about where they preached. They're talking about these meaningful relationships. They're talking about, man, I wish I wouldn't have held on to that bitterness. Hey, I wish I wouldn't have been so afraid in that moment. Think about the stuff we're afraid of a lot of times that then you look up, take COVID. I mean, all the fear. And then the truth is, like God always does, He's working all things together for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. And there is some, again, people lost family members. I did funerals. I'm not in any way glossing over.
Sure.
But God also was at work here from a bigger perspective. So I want you to talk for a minute about, so I'm sharing a little bit of my sort of life message. What is VU Church? Like as you say, hey, I've even been refining this, because I think your church is 10 years old. I think, how did you choose you're supposed to be there? You moved there with your dad.
Yep.
How does you and Don Cherie know we're called here? And then not I love this, not the pamphlet, not the website, but like, what's the flow? Like, what really is it? Not a reel on Instagram where, you're giving a thought of it, but what is it? Like, take us into that. And I think, you have to really say, why am I here? I think there's multiple moments you go, why does this matter? Why are we here? What expression of Christ are we called? And just like you were saying, I think, you can't win it. You can get an A in everything, but you got to go, hey, we have to be this, like we have a burden for this. Talk to us about VU Church, this, what, give us your flow a little bit.
Okay. I preached a message last year called The Cross I Didn't Choose. And I was talking about that man named Simon who was picked out of the crowd and they put the cross on his back. But, just think about, there's so many things in your life that you did not choose.
Mm-hmm.
They were chosen for you.
Yeah.
I didn't choose the family I was born into. I didn't choose my hair color, my eye color, didn't choose my stature. I didn't even choose to move to Miami. My house, I don't know, you're making a joke. There is no gentle parenting. You know what I mean? It's like, yes, Father, I beseech thee upon the people, curtsy, you know what I mean? Thank you for blessing me. We all went, So I didn't choose Miami. And I think in the area of calling, because it's a funny thing to talk about. And I don't even know if it was a conversation up until the last 50 years, probably. Because so often people are trying to choose a calling.
Right.
I feel like my calling chose me.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that's kind of how it usually does work, is that you're summoned
right,
into something.
right.
Like the call of God comes and it's pulling you. I'm not trying to make someone feel bad. I'm trying to actually comfort someone. I'm trying to encourage something.
Right.
What's God's will for my life? Well, doesn't Thessalonians say that will of God is to pray continually, give thanks in all things, and rejoice always? You know,
Right.
like, are you doing those three things? The calling will find you.
Exactly.
I grew up in Miami, and at 14, I was probably going there kicking and screaming to some degree, but now looking back, it's only looking back, like Kierkegaard says, that you can ever put things into order, you know, like
Right.
Steve Jobs says you can only connect the dots looking backwards. It was the greatest thing that ever happened. My dad chose that for me. And after serving there for 8 years, we started feeling this burden to see a church that would love a city. Two values at the top are Jesus is our message, people are our heart.
Yeah.
That's not something brand new. That's not, what's the greatest commandment? Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your
Great
neighbor as yourself.
Commission, great
It's the
commandment.
Great Commission.
Yeah.
But I do think language matters, because even as you're talking about leading to win, you're like, hey, I want to help people win in the areas that matter most. I would say, like, what's the ethos or what's the culture of VU Church? It's play the long game.
Yeah.
It's another way of, we're all quoting, we're all plagiarizing Jesus. You know, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world, but freaking forfeit your soul? You know,
Exactly.
like, so
Yeah.
I think in Miami, it's been the message of the gospel. And the gospel has a hinge, right? Like, it's not just the good news. Like, I can't appreciate the good news without the bad news.
Right.
So I feel like from day one, it's been unapologetically, unashamed, unafraid, announcing the gospel. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. Even in the most famous Tim Tebow verse there is, the bad news is there, perish.
Right. Right.
The second death, eternal death, separation from God.
Right.
So I feel like it's always been the full gospel
Yeah.
being announced and proclaimed, but
Yeah.
doing so in a way that's been wrapped in love.
Right.
And it's done so in a way for all people. And when you say, like, yeah, man, what's my life message? I don't know if I've ever used that language. I probably should lean into that more and more. But I think if you go back on my sermons for the last 20 years, if there is something that's bubbling to the top, it is probably a little bit of what we were talking about today, that I want to embrace my fragility and humanity, that I am a fallen, broken person, back to my Presbyterian roots, totally depraved.
Yeah.
But in all that, we have such a faithful and good God. And where you're at
I got
today,
some of those Reformed backgrounds, so we always loved that a Pentecostal, you know, kind of got a little more biblical, you know.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
like,
wow.
Man, that's he's using hermeneutics.
you know, some of these, like, it's not that hard to impress.
All of these young
Pentecostals.
guys today coming to me goes, oh, have you ever studied hermeneutics? You know, I'm like, I appreciate you learned a new word, bro, but it's all good, you know.
It's always fun when we just try to throw out theological words. Talk to me about your soteriology for a moment, Jeff. You know, like, okay. Dude.
Yeah.
Now, where are you at with your eschatology? Like, we get it, bro. We get it. But I think in all that, like, if I'm just saying, to me, it's like, grow slow.
Yeah.
Play the long game.
Yeah.
God's faithful.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is in many ways like your message. I think it takes the pressure off of the
Right.
person, that, like, this is on God. I've preached for years, God doesn't need me. Oh, but he wants me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not the oil. I'm the tool.
Yeah.
I'm a tool for Jesus.
But
And
I
feel
I think though, you know, I would say though that you have a very unique evangelistic gift. You know, like I see in you, you always want to encourage somebody where they have, you know, the ability to reach some people that other people can't
very
reach too, though, right? Because you have, you know, God gives us personality. You and I, we could sit and tell jokes forever. Like, it's like, I think there's something powerful about that, you know, obviously we have the Bible, but God's there's the part of that message coming through you, right?
Absolutely.
So he puts you there. My master's degree is in missiology. What does that really mean? That you don't go to France and speak Spanish. You follow me?
Yep.
Now, there are some Spanish speakers in France, but predominantly that's not the language. Talk to me about the missiology of Miami. Talk to me about, because I think that's another thing today that you and I have talked about this, and that is church goes through seasons, and I think we're in a season where there's a lot more pragmatic help for pastors. Well, I mean, there's podcasts for leaders in general. Like, how many leadership podcasts? You know, it's like there's so much content, there's help. I think that's a good thing, because when I started, there wasn't any of that. always with a strength is a potential weakness. Potential weakness is, I was 23. I had a church in a furniture store in a town of 182 people. I thought I was amazing. I thought I was the greatest pastor on planet Earth. I had no one to compare myself to.
Right.
So people follow other pastors, right? And they kind of get it. And then they try to, but you have to think about context.
Yep.
It's so basic yet so powerful. Who are you reaching? What, where's your business? Where's your company? You as a teacher, what are those, can you speak their language? How have y'all contextualized would be the word,
Yep.
What you do at VU Church for Miami? What are some of the things you've had to learn? Like how you, we were talking about buildings and
Yep.
what are some of those things?
I really think that the Lord, he works through a person. I believe it wholeheartedly that when, God's plan is a man, God's plan is a woman. And when I even think about my story, we're here in Dallas, and Dallas is known for some beautiful churches. And by the way, you have one of the most beautiful ones I've ever been in. And sometimes you'll hear preacher talk. We all know preacher talk. Well, if that was in Dallas, let me tell you what, Dallas would eat me alive. Like I don't have any level of pride or thought that I could make it work in Dallas. I have a lot of confidence in contentment that God made me for Miami.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that, what I'm saying is that you're talking about context. I think context is everything.
Mm-hmm.
You actually have to exegete your city.
Yes.
You actually have to know with what you're dealing with. Miami, in many ways, is kind of like the Wild West in terms of, we were having a conversation the other day about like doctrine. Like we don't really have doctrine police. You know what I mean? We've got a lot of people from South America with Catholic backgrounds.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mysticism, spirituality.
Yeah.
I'm preaching against full on tarot cards and crystals. I mean, that would be a big problem.
Exactly.
Santa. I mean, there's real spiritual activity there.
Yeah.
But where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. I think for us, when it comes to Miami, some of the things that separate, or I would say that I'm proud of VU, that seem to me, I haven't been to every church and I don't know everyone's community, but some of its distinctive competencies that kind of stretch out is you go back to that Acts chapter 2 model that they gathered in the temple courts and in homes, they broke bread together. We've always been great into the great assembly, the gathering. We've been able to somehow generate in a difficult city that wherever we show up, somehow we've been able to see a crowd develop, which has helped because Miami is a weird, I went and did this is a humble brag, but I was invited to Harvard maybe 6 or 7 years ago with community leaders for an intense study on our cities. It was like 9 major cities. And they gave us these big thick books about each one of our cities. And like, we were kind of doing a diagnostics on our place. And Miami had all these kind of unique things, but one of the things that was really bad about it was that it was like double negative, like 0000 in community index, meaning in volunteerism, in voting, in the census.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this. I remember when LeBron James used to play for the Heat.
Yeah.
I went to a couple of the finals games, and brother, we got the greatest NBA player at the time, and we're in the finals. It's game 2 or 3. But 8 minutes in the first quarter, the room still isn't full.
They probably, is it because, I'm just speculating, because they don't feel like their voice matters or they don't feel a part of the discussion?
I think there's a few things I think from the study, but as well as what I'll just give some of my experience. You got a melting pot of different nationalities and worlds.
Yeah.
So what are we rallying around?
Yeah.
Because you even use the thing right now. It's like, going to France and speaking Spanish with les compétents. That's lazy. Okay, easy, Home Alone. But like in Miami, like what is it Spanish? Is it Portuguese?
Right.
Is it Creole? Is it Italian? Is it Mandarin, for goodness sake? Like, I think there's so many different people there, so they don't really find like, who cares who's playing? Secondly, I think it's an overly stimulated surface veneer party place.
Right.
So I don't want to say Miami's shallow.
Right.
It's like your church is shallow. No, churches aren't shallow. People are shallow.
Right.
And if you got a pool, right? Pool, my pool's got a shallow end and a deep end.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with shallow. Do you have a deep end? Okay. Like I want to have a deep end. And I think that churches do, but I think sometimes we can like generalize. And so I don't think Miami's shallow, but I think there are shallow people there.
Yeah.
And so I think things like basketball games, it's like they're always just into whatever's happening. It's big. There's always new restaurants, new clubs, on and on and on and on. What I learned with our church is that somehow God gave us a grace to gather.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is okay.
I want to pause there for a minute because it's so funny because, human beings have always been to extremes, right? So it's like if I get hurt in this genre of something, then I swing to this genre.
Yep.
It's human nature.
We react,
right? But let's be clear. Jesus loved the crowd. In fact, he got onto the whoa. Don't. There's sheep without a shepherd. There's the crowd. The crowds loved. In fact, he was always he was such a crowd gatherer. He was actually trying to say we don't have tickets for sale. Hey, don't tell anybody.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So he loved the crowd, but he also had these disciples he poured into. He also had times where he challenged the crowd. If you don't eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, John 6:66, and many withdrew. But I don't think it has to be either or is what I hear you saying. And I think that needs to be said more, right?
Totally.
Because because I recently by someone, disciples, which is something I'm passionate about, is coaching and discipling people. But if you're really discipling them to be disciples of Jesus, then they're multiplying disciples. So therefore, if you really are making disciples of Christ, then they're going to multiply, and then you have a crowd.
Don't get me going on this.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying.
It's not an either
Believers believe, disciples do.
Yeah.
And you got to do what a disciple is marked by doing what Jesus did.
Exactly.
And so he did a lot of things. Mark chapter 2, the house was so full that there wasn't room left. But apparently he believes in overflows because they let him cut a hole in the freaking roof. You know what I'm saying?
Can't call it overflow, additional seating.
Yeah, we call it additional seating too. I love all the new church semantics. It's not a service, it's a gathering. It's not a church, it's not a camp. It's like, okay, we get it. By the way, I'm a freak on that stuff, so I'm actually making fun of myself. We don't use overflow either. But point being, I think that there was a grace to gather. And I could go for 28 minutes on Jesus loving the crowds.
Loving the crowd. And so you begin to love the city. So now you have this melting pot of people who are starting to come together, and you want to be a place where a lost person wants to come. You want to be a place where they want to bring a lost friend. And I think that's important. I think that's also, in my opinion, in recent years, the enemy's strategy actually was to make churches homogenous, meaning only the theological people, only the mature, only this race, only this expression, only because when you go through challenges in culture, then we gravitate to something we're familiar with, which is actually the enemy's strategy to rally us around our algorithm to which we can't actually gather with our community. And it's why it's been hard to be a pastor, because that's all I've ever done with my life is serve. But when I'm in my community, I'm a reconciler. I'm a gatherer. I'm a, hey, come together. Hey, wait, have you met them? Hey, wait. And it has been harder to be a pastor.
Sure.
But it's still very, very noble work.
It's worthy work.
It's worthy
is
work.
what I think about it. And I think it's the thing that Jesus built and that he cared about the most. And in our 10-year journey, he didn't just bless us and grace us with being able to produce crowds in Miami. I think the simultaneous both and part of that model was that it was a deep, deep community of hospitality, that it's part of the culture that church ends and then people are in each other's homes.
Yeah.
Last Sunday, I had 50 people in my house afterwards. We that's how we started the church, was in my apartment. And so that's kind of continued.
Yeah,
and
cool.
the spirit of hospitality, of bringing strangers around a table, and just the ordinary of breaking bread together and watching as the gospel actually doesn't just happen in the great gathering, but it happens, one-on-one.
And I'm familiar with you've then created these other contexts for deeper teaching, and you've got, interns and training and students and leaders. And so you've built these, we end up, as we go, building these different ways in which we can respond to the levels in which people are at. Because that's really what happens, is to be a church means we do reach the crowd and we continue to develop and disciple them. So I want to switch gears. You mentioned finishing. So you are 42?
42.
Okay. And so, so I'm 52.
Never said that publicly.
So I'm 52. So I'm kind of older brother, but just because of your vibe, I think you have a younger spirit, which I don't think that's a bad thing, right? I think I was 45 when I was 25. There's like this guy's like an old man, It's like, so, but I do think a lot of younger people listen to you, which I think is an important stewardship. And so then you also have this perspective looking back, to being, younger leader. So when you say, I want to finish. And then if you were talking, what are some of the landmines, right? What do you say to younger, really not, I guess it could be all of us.
Yeah.
What are the landmines today? What are let's be honest. I mean, in some ways the world has changed, but when you really read the Bible, we all have still the same issues packaged in a different, you know what I mean? But what do you think is what wisdom at 42 do you give? Like if you had to say, hey, here's a couple leadership thoughts, landmines, what are you teaching your younger staff right now? Like, what are you saying? Hey guys, I need you to make sure you're thinking about blah, blah, blah. I think we hit on a big one is the heart. Like, it's like the whole world is offended. It's like, it's okay just to be, brash with people and you get extra credit. I mean, I think we hit some of that. What other things do you think there is?
Yeah, I think, what do you do when you don't know what to do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you do your habits.
Mm-hmm.
A habit is this involuntary pattern that comes out of you almost like second nature. And a habit isn't hard. Discipline is.
Yeah.
But once you've disciplined a habit, it becomes second nature.
Right.
And I would just say to any young leader, but to any person, because, no better time to start than today. When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? Today.
Yeah.
Is that you actually have to form spiritual disciplines and habits to create a foundation. Today I was talking with your staff and it said, repetition creates reputation.
Love that.
And
that
all
was
that
such a good
means
point.
just like whatever you're repeating.
Right.
And I feel like if I could go back, I would work harder on habit stacking and creating, because a foundation matters most when the wind begins to blow. You bend, but you actually don't have to break. Ben Sass, who was the Nebraska U.S. Senator, the president of University of Florida right now. He's in, I think, stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
And he's dying in front of the public right now. He's been doing podcasts, but he had written a book a few years ago that I would recommend to any leader called The Vanishing American Adult. And I went and revisited it after I heard the news about him. And the premise of the book is the elongated adolescence of men and women today, which it's like, that can be as, I don't know if they have it here in Texas, but the 13th grade, it's all these things like, well, you know
Gap
what they need? They just keep adding, more and more childhood essentially to it, because there is not a weakness of muscle, but a weakness of mentality and spirit and heart.
Yeah.
That somehow we live in a world today that we say hard is bad.
Right.
Well, I think that you could, I'll just say it for me, some of the best things that have ever happened for me were painful, difficult, hard moments that I was allowed, that it was God's mercy that let me go through it.
Yeah.
And so the premise of his book is talking about the education system. I'll spare you that, but he ends up laying out 5 different pillars. And I think these are good pillars to kind of consider and think about. I've been thinking about them this past week, that he talks about what creates a self-reliant person. Because when you say, what am I trying to teach a generation following behind me? Judges says a whole generation grew up and did not know God. So I kind of live, my missiology is like, no one else is coming. The church is God's plan. And so I'm passing a baton or I'm not.
Right.
So that kind of keeps me urgent. I'm trying to put a resilience. What is resilience? It's a bounce back power that if you fall, the righteous man, well, he falls 7 times, but he gets back up.
Yeah.
Here's what Ben says. He says that we need to, number 1, embrace our immortality, that we are so segmented and segregated even in churches. I don't think we mean to, but if we're not careful, all of our programming is, this is for 7th grade boys.
Right.
This is for 3-year-old girls.
Yeah.
But one of the most healthy things is for my kids to be with their grandparents.
Yeah.
Them to see wrinkles and gray hair. My parents have, God bless them. They don't have so many wrinkles, if you know what I mean. But there's this idea that we don't want to grow old.
Right, I got you.
We don't want to age.
Right.
We're all trying to find the fountain of youth. If I ever write a sci-fi movie, which I might actually do, my sci-fi concept is a world that children run everything. Because everybody so desperately wants to not die that we glorify kids. It's Lord of the Flies, but it's on steroids, where the children are the emperors. And in many ways, this is what helicopter parenting and gentle parenting might even be doing. We'll spare it for your details this week, but it's like We need to get around death. Death, the bad news is the good news. Death is sobering. We a man in our church this past week, motorcycle accident. His wife was in church on Sunday, like just 5 days ago. He was alive and vibrant. Now he's dead. And I'm grateful for the gospel. We don't mourn like the world. That sobers us up. But if we're not careful, we will segment societies when we need to, our kids need to see how we do this.
Right.
He says the second thing is you have to limit consumption. That we live in consumerismville, and consuming doesn't make you happy, producing does.
Yeah.
We need a work ethic. And when he says work ethic, it's not about like just having a job, but it's about doing manual labor, get on a ranch, do something boring, mundane, hard, difficult. Number 4, he says travel, but travel light. That when we get to see the world, we learn different cultures, we discover new things. We seek to understand before we seek to be understood. We become more. And then fifthly, he says you got to read, but not read good. You have to read deeply. And I think if there's something at 42, which I'm ashamed of, but I'm really trying to mature in and grow, is in reading and reading deeply, and meaning going, a book and knowledge from the past gives me the opportunity that I can either learn from my experience or I can grow from your wisdom. And I'm trying to absorb, and I want to go deeper than where I've been. And I want to die full of God's wisdom, but empty of every gift and talent that he's given me by pouring it out for a generation that comes behind me. And so when you say, what is I'm trying to instill, it's something of that version of a self-reliance and a resilience that
I love it.
Hard isn't bad. Let's become who he's called us to become.
So our mantra over our kids' church is you don't have to wait to be great. So, you grew up, in that environment with your grandfathers, your dad. My dad was an engineer. I didn't grow up with a ministry family, but my pastor, he let me preach at 16, right? So I think, and did I know when he's letting me preach at 16 that I'm going to be the youth pastor at a church and they're going to give me the reins? And I think what you're really saying is actually your child or those students or the miracles in the house, the next youth pastor might actually be the 19-year-old that is – we tend to rise to the expectation of what is so
very good.
It's there, if you create an atmosphere to go, no, there's no junior Holy Spirit. I mean, we need you, man, to start now. And I think you develop those habits when you actually. I personally believe the exodus from the church is the reality. The reality that they don't believe it matters, right? And so if it matters that if I'm in the game, if I'm included in the discussion, if I'm part of it, because we know the Bible says people without vision perish, cast off constraint. So it's actually me personally seeing myself connected to it is what constrains me to think different. So if I'm going to be a senior, you were in there with all the young people. I was like, you could be a pastor at 21. You could be. You could be called on. You could be. So you need to prepare now, not like you're, in a gap year hanging out. Totally. No, you're in a real year and you're a part of the team, And so I think I think that's important for you because whether you ask for it or not, you're looked to. You are the pastor of a church and you have all of these things, but I do think I want to encourage you to keep sharing that voice because I think you also are saying it in a way that's not condescending, right? So I think we also have this other side of things to go, the guy the other day, millennials, I'm like, bro, you do realize they're like 40 years old or whatever, right? So it's like, and then it's also, like back when I was and y'all don't. And so it isn't a talking down, it's a calling up.
Saying millennials is like saying boomers now. Like no one calls out these generations. You got to talk about Alpha or Gen Z. Oh, these millennials. You're like, come on, man. Gen X, I can't stand these guys. That makes me laugh. That's a funny bit, by the way. Yeah. Well, I haven't heard that in a while. Millennials.
Millennials.
By the way, I was preaching to young adults last night, and I've never been more of a millennial in my life. I don't think I was prepared enough. Every illustration I had, like you had to have been born, in the 80s. It's like, dude, this is really like, everyone's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's
just
what that is.
Who likes country music? Garth Brooks. And it's like, dude, like what? That was terrible, but God bless it.
Well, man, thank you for having the conversation.
Oh, thanks for letting me be on.
Thank you for what you do to inspire others, and appreciate your friendship. And man, I'm cheering you guys on.
Same from us. We're so grateful for you and your leadership, your life, the way that you continue to lead, and who you are in the body of Christ. And so many of us are watching, and what you guys have accomplished, what you guys are building, is nothing short of inspiring, but it's transformative. And so, if no one's told you in a while, thank you, and thanks for letting me be here on Lead to Win, man. Greatest podcast this side of the Mississippi.
I want to say thank you for checking out this episode of the Lead to Win podcast. I want you to know that I love, and my team loves, getting this kind of content into your life so it can help you lead and win at what matters most. So I'd love for you to do me a favor, like, comment, especially subscribe if you would, so that we can make sure that we're able to get to you some of the things that are going to help you lead to win.